Hello, my name is Chloe Folan, and this is just a very quick video to make sure that nobody has missed the announcement because a few people have been waiting on this. Just a very quick announcement that this is the official public release of the document I put together for better explaining all of the ins and outs and intrinsities of the first birth initiation. So that document that I've discussed in prior videos and the document I had up in prior videos has been publicly and officially released, and it's been released on my website. And not only has the document been released on my website, if you scroll down the bottom of the article, there's a little link where you can click and download a free PDF. And I know a lot of people have been very eager for this. So just to backtrack a bit, as most people are aware, my name is Chloe Folan, and I teach the rainbow bridge techniques that are also known as the soul star clearing techniques. And those techniques were created by the late founders, Josephine and Norman Stevens, with their prototype groups. And the rainbow bridge techniques, or the soul star clearing techniques, were consciously created to deeply align with the evolutionary development discussed in the Bailey books. Meaning, as most people are aware, the information in the Bailey books as they're known, or most of the information in the Bailey books, was imparted by Ascended Master Dwell Cool through Alice A. Bailey. And Ascended Master Dwell Cool is a fully fledged fifth degree, revelation degree initiate. So really, really high frequency information, in particular on evolution and initiation. So the late Josephine and Norman Stevens, because of their past life connections to Ascended Master Dwell Cool's ashram, and that deep connection being repeated in their past current lifetimes, they gathered all of their knowledge, all of their wisdom, all of their intelligence, and created prototype groups to not only see if a proper technique could be developed that would resolve and dissolve all karmic imbalance, but also a technique that would also, by default, properly enforce evolution and initiation. And the initiations I am discussing are the initiations heaven bless you with by virtue of where you are on your evolutionary pathway. So I am talking about proper hierarchical initiations that are an individual and group experience, and deeply tied in with group and individual evolution. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is one of my reasons for releasing the document on the first birth initiation is my way of continuing to dissolve glamour and dissolve misappropriation around what the proper hierarchical initiations actually are. And for a moment, I'm going to try to discuss this issue from a different angle. As most people are aware, I live in Ireland. And in Ireland, there is an issue at the moment, although it's been around for a while, over what is called fake law, meaning where people make up that something's Celtic, or claim that something is a Celtic tradition when it's not, or there's no proof that it was, or claim some ceremony or ritual is ancient Irish in origin, or making up Irish, so-called Irish secret orders and all of this. So let me be clear. Nobody has a problem with someone sharing their gnosis or someone wanting to share their own impressions or their own imaginings or insights. What the real issue is when people fudge facts over whether something is Celtic or not, or whether something is tradition-based or not, whether something actually was an Irish custom or not. So that's what the term fake law means. When someone has just slapped the word Celtic on something they've chucked out into the public, or when someone has, I think people understand where I'm going with this, and it is a real issue. There is an awful lot of information out there that claims to be Celtic that isn't, that claims to be a Celtic traditional custom and isn't. And again, no one minds someone sharing their imaginings or their past life recalls or things of that nature. But there are certain people that do need to be more respectful over fudging facts and fudging the lines over things of that nature. And the exact same issue has happened with hierarchical initiation. Hierarchical initiation does have a certain definition to it. Again, it's debatable, but from a certain level. But unfortunately, those proper levels of awareness have been constantly getting watered down and misappropriated. And coming back to one of the reasons why I released the document, and I'm going to be releasing more information about it, is because of the deluge, the absolute deluge of misunderstood information and misappropriated information that's put out there into public circulation. A lot of the easier to find information is not properly understood and has been misappropriated. And it does mislead, and it does create a mess. And I'm going to again try to explain why. When someone claims to be teaching someone a technique that enforces hierarchical evolution or universal initiations, if you say to somebody, this technique causes the first birth initiation, and that's all you tell them, and you tell them, oh, the first birth initiation is just around diet and the physical body experiences. It's not the first birth initiation that will manifest. What will manifest is what you tell them it is. I will say that again, because now we're touching on the power of belief and touching on the core reason why I am in Right Relations trying to push back against the deluge of misinformation about hierarchical initiation, because some of the misinformation is actually quite harmful. And I'll give an example of that in a video where there's some information that's very publicly known that actually has nothing to do with hierarchical initiation and is actually harmful. And people are told it's a part of hierarchical initiation, and it's not. So we're coming back to the main powerful point I just made. When you claim to be teaching somebody a technique that apparently enforces universal or hierarchical initiations, and you say to them, right, this causes the first birth initiation, and the first birth initiation is around a little around diet and physical body experiences, it's not the proper first birth initiation that will manifest. It's what you tell them it is. So again, the first birth initiation in totality is not just physical body or health challenges, and not just around diet and things of that nature. That's one of the minor initiations that are a part of the full first birth initiation. So again, what you tell someone the first birth initiation is the criteria you give them, along with the apparent technique. What you tell them it is what will manifest. That is the power of belief. So now we're getting into how people get pulled sideways into misinformation and why misinformation is a problem when it comes to hierarchical initiation. So again, I'm trying to explain, just telling someone the first birth initiation will manifest is not enough. What will manifest is the roadmap, the explanation you give them of the first birth initiation. And this is how misappropriation starts, where certain people, because of their own incomplete records and their own glamours and illusions, get a hold of decent information, but then filter out what they can't understand and cherry pick bits out of the proper information on initiations and mishmash it together into this scrambled nonsense that misleads, that might cause a little bit of an initiation process, but a lot of it's misleading. That is the reason why I have released the first birth initiation, deeply explaining all of the stages of development that lead up to. There are minor initiations and deep ones, deep, thorough, minor initiations that lead up to fully consummating all of the first birth initiation. So I just want to bring up the document and where this is on my website. 2 moments, please, while I just get up my screen share. So screen share, apologies. I did a Zoom update and it's put things in different places. Here we go. So if you log on to my website, www.chloefolan.com, and you click onto my homepage and you scroll down, you'll see here a new button has been added to my website, Initiation Releases. If you click on this, this will bring you to the document, Initiation Releases, Extracts from the Universal Initiations Document Summary of the First Birth Initiation. So I do understand that the way the document translated onto my website in article form, it has caused some spelling errors with the way it crossed over. But if you scroll down to the bottom of where this article was posted on my website, you'll see here where you can click on the original the original PDF for public release. If you click on that document has everything spelled correctly and paragraphs the right way. This did get a little bit, you know, when this got copied over onto my website to be published, it did misspell things a bit here and there, but essentially speaking, this is it. This is the release. And again, I've released this because I believe everybody deserves to have access to proper information about the initiations. Now, don't get me wrong and don't misunderstand me. I will only be releasing information on the first birth initiation, the second baptism initiation, and some information about the third. At this point in time, I will not be publishing any very directly spelled out information on the fourth, fifth, or sixth initiations for obvious reasons. It does get to a point where there is some information for obvious reasons around raising Kundalini and things of that nature, where I don't believe it's wise to release certain higher information, so to speak, especially out into the public collective, but I will be releasing, and I have released. So again, this video is just to make sure people that were waiting on this, that nobody's missed this. I've already posted on my social media pages that the first birth document has been officially publicly published and officially publicly released. And down the bottom of this link on my website, you can download a copy of the PDF of the article that's on my website to read through at your leisure. I would ask that I am quoted properly if you're quoting this article, and I do also ask that my copyrights are kept on this article. Please do keep in mind that this document represents a summary of 7 years worth of study and investigation into the initiation process, meaning not just studying what the books say or what the decent books say about initiation, but cross-referencing that with, oh my goodness, countless case studies. And I'm still doing this. I'm still going to be doing this. As far as I'm aware, you're never finished. There's always something to learn. So I'm still doing this, but I finally got this to a point where I believe I'm now in a place where I can publicly release something that is decent for the collective, meaning 7 years worth of thought, study, reflection, and case studies put into this document before releasing it. You know, having a lot of integrity and reflection behind what's released, not just willy-nilly chucking something out into the collective. And I know that that alone is deeply appreciated by people that understand what I'm talking about in terms of hierarchical initiation and karmic responsibility with what you put out there into the collective. So just to highlight the public release. So just coming back to the start of this article. Again, the first birth initiation has stages of development to it. It has minor initiations to it. So when we are discussing the first birth initiation or debating the first initiation or reflecting on the first birth initiation, there are the following main auric markers that do need to be considered when reflecting on what the first birth initiation actually is in its totality. So a few people have casually, sorry, just highlight this, a few people have casually peer-reviewed this document for me who have studied the proper, true initiations, meaning haven't fallen afoul of getting caught up in the misappropriated information. People who have had the good fortune of studying the proper initiations, the proper hierarchical initiations, the decent information on the hierarchical initiations. So those people that casually peer-reviewed this document for me before it was more publicly and widely released, they've suggested strongly that the connected YouTube video is watched, meaning before it was publicly posted on my website, I created a test video just talking through the document that I was getting ready to publish. So there is a link that you can click on to watch the first birth initiation video that links with this document, and that's been strongly suggested by people that casually peer-reviewed this document for me. And it is important to remember that the universal initiations or hierarchical initiations being discussed have the main auric markers and manifestations. For the first birth initiation being explored, the following auric markers are explored in detail, meaning within the document that's been released. That number one, there needs to be 8 petals open in the heart chakra, and that includes all 3 knowledge petals in the first 3 rings of the heart lotus. 2, that there needs to be a clear and deep link between the first birth initiation and the third transfiguration initiation. This is the personality service thread weaving and linking to the 3rd chakra above the soul star chakra, meaning the triad chakra. So this is the personality service thread weaving and linking to the triad chakra above the soul star chakra, and all 3 petals open in the mental plane ring of the heart chakra. 3, the conditioning of the orange ray being involved, meaning at some point through the steps, through the stages, through the testing steps, the evolution stages of the first birth initiation, at some point you would have needed to be conditioned by the orange ray. So that needs to be considered as well. The orange ray conditions you at the 3rd stage of building the rainbow bridge. And 4, the initial application of the rod of initiation at the first birth initiation. This happens usually around the middle of stage 2 of development. So when you're around stage 2 of building the rainbow bridge, that's when there's a small administering of the rod of initiation. That's the soul to heart thread weaving activating the opening of the second ring of petals in the heart chakra, birth of love in the heart chakra, love awareness, love development, the soul to heart thread weaving. And then sometimes you might also get a little bit of a dose of the rod of initiation for the first birth initiation, another little bit of it towards the end of the third stage of building the rainbow bridge. Everyone's a little bit different. So those are the main auric markers. So when discussing or debating or talking about the first birth initiation, these are the main auric markers that are a part of the proper full first birth initiation. So for the Rainbow Bridge students that I teach, and I'll keep discussing this and I'll keep finding ways to articulate this to make this loud and clear. The keys to a proper, healthy, evolutionary enforcement experience are, number one, a properly and thoroughly tested technique. The Rainbow Bridge techniques were properly and thoroughly tested for 10 years and overlap that with another 10 years even after that, and prototypes still continuing. The Rainbow Bridge techniques are one of the only and one of the very few techniques that were properly, thoroughly, and deeply tested in multiple test groups before being given out publicly. Deeply responsible techniques, highly tested techniques, high caliber techniques that, as far as I'm aware, are unrivaled with the level of care that went into developing these techniques and the level of expertise that went into developing these techniques. And please remember, the developers of this technique were fully aware of the proper true initiations and the steps, the stages of evolution required in between each of the proper initiations. So in other words, number one, the keys are a proper tested technique combined with a properly explained roadmap of the causations of the technique. So yes, Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 properly consummates all parts of the first birth initiation, all steps, all stages, properly activates all parts, all stages, all aspects of the first birth initiation holistically and in sequence, because that's the roadmap you're given. You're not just told this technique causes the first birth initiation. You are also given a proper explanation, a proper road map, and I give auric plates, I give visuals for what that looks like. So as you work with the evolutionary enforcement technique, you are aware over the proper initiation roadmap that you are following. And again, this properly follows the hierarchical initiations described by Ascended Master Dwelcool in the Bailey books. And those initiations have been discussed in other books, but the Bailey books are one of those rare books that actually do give out, there's decent information in them. There's one or two. There would also be, I'll get to that in a minute. I'll create another video over other decent source materials, but the Bailey books are one of the rare exceptions of proper information properly imparted by an actual Ascended Master, being an Ascended Master Dwelcool, high caliber information. So, sorry, I love to explain all the ins and outs of everything. The proper keys to a healthy evolutionary enforcement experience are a properly tried and tested technique. And the Rainbow Bridge techniques are so high caliber, very high caliber. The amount of work, effort, and expertise that went into those techniques, as far as I'm concerned, is unparalleled. The amount of care, consideration, expertise, proper insight, proper testing. The second key is properly explained causation, properly explained criteria. Third ingredient, visual. What does that look like? What are those manifestations? What do those manifestations look like? What are the visuals? What are the precipitations? So you put that all together. Properly tested karma clearing technique. Properly explained initiation criteria, following proper evolutionary roadmaps, the proper blueprint of initiation, the proper blueprint of evolution. And you combine that then with visuals. Visuals, what does that? You put that all together, and that is an absolute winning formula for a very healthy process for enforcing evolution. Proper technique, properly explained criteria, following a proper healthy evolution line of force, combined with visuals, and that's why I give auric plates. Case study auric plates of what certain phenomena look like when certain phenomena has manifested in relation to the initiations. So this first document goes into detail over the first 3 minor initiations that lead up to the totality of the first birth initiation, meaning stage 1 minor initiation, and looking at it from all angles. So the first stage, looking at it from an angle of the antakrana thread that weaves, the conditioning ray, the heart chakra, the chakras, the aura, practical causation, and the antakrana bridge of light. So this is also what sometimes causes people to overestimate, and I've mentioned this in other videos. If you're only tracking one piece of phenomena, meaning you're only zoning in on just what happens to the heart chakra, you are going to overestimate if you don't overlap that with the connecting points of what's happening in the aura, the other chakras, the antakrana threads. This is also what gets largely misunderstood. You have to examine and observe the whole person, all of their soul ecology, to properly and more accurately assess for yourself or somebody else where you may be on the evolutionary pathway. You can't just zone in and focus on one piece. If you only track one piece of phenomena, you are tracking subplane changes. And teeny tiny subplane changes, while still great, are not the full initiations in their totality. You must be able to simultaneously sit down and observe and reflect on, simultaneously, what's happening with the antakrana threads, conditioning ray, heart chakra, chakras, aura, practical causation, antakrana bridge of light, and how that's all interconnecting. So while stage 1 is a minor initiation, as you can see, it's a very thorough, very deep minor initiation. So in other words, what's being explored in this document about the first birth initiation is how the stage 1 minor initiation, stage 2 minor initiation, and stage 3 minor initiation all then consummate. The end of stage 3 minor initiation marks the end of the stages of development for the first birth initiation. So when you've fully consummated the 3rd stage of development, that marks the end of the first birth initiation and the start of these stages of development that are a part of the 2nd baptism initiation. And that will be my next video and my next document release. I'm going to repeat this same process because it worked so well. In September, I'm going to create a test video around the stages of development of the proper 2nd baptism initiation, and I'll bring the test document up on screen, and I'll release a test video. I will then ask certain key people to casually peer review that document for me as well. And then with the constructive feedback I receive, I'll then add in other suggestions that are made over what's talked about in the document. And then I will release a document on the proper second baptism initiation and the stages of development and causations of the second baptism initiation. So I just wanted to see if there was anything else I wanted to talk about. Yes, there is. Now, I want to keep highlighting this. In this document, the first birth, the proper public release, the PDF release of this document, I mentioned sources, and that's very important. So sources for the first birth initiation document: continuing clairvoyant case studies of students subjecting themselves to evolution enforcement techniques. 2, the late Michael Robbins initiation compilation videos. They are phenomenal videos and overlap directly with what I'm discussing in these videos, or thereabouts. In other words, if you do watch the late Michael Robbins initiation compilation videos, you see how that does deeply overlap with what's being explored and discussed in my videos and with the document releases I'm putting out there. And 3, the Bailey books, proper source books for information imparted by Ascended Master Dwelkul. And number 4, this is an important development, Norman Stevens Phase 3 document. So again, for people that don't know, Norman Stevens is one of the late founders of the Rainbow Bridge techniques that I've been discussing. So just to highlight this, because this actually overlaps with some questions that I've had in my Rainbow Bridge classes, the Rainbow Bridge classes that I teach that are about the Rainbow Bridge techniques. And a lot of people who do know about proper initiation, or people that don't and are seeking proper information on the initiations, asking where, because there's Rainbow Bridge Phase 1, there's Rainbow Bridge Phase 2, and then there's Phase 3, which is Monadic Thread. And I quite often get asked how that overlaps with how the Rainbow Bridge techniques build the light body. So I would now like to share something. And I'm just going to bring up my screen share. I hope my screen share is switching as I do this. This document that I have up on screen is Norman Stevens Phase 3 document. And down the bottom of this document, he's actually even signed this. So this is a proper signed document by Norman Stevens. I will not be publicly releasing this document because this document is for people at a certain point in development. So there are parts of this that aren't suitable for public consumption. But look, coming back on that, there are sections of this that I do want to share in terms of also highlighting what I'm trying to mainly talk about, of trying to put proper, decent information out there about hierarchical initiations and pushing back against glamour, illusion, and warping of the proper markers of what the proper initiations actually are. So again, this is written by Norman Stevens. This document was written or compiled back in 1988. So 1988, the Rainbow Bridge techniques first started to be tested in the 1960s. Phase 1 was released about 10 years after that. Phase 2 was publicly released around 1975 through their students who had completed their clearing process. So this document Norman had put together back in 1988. And again, I'm only going to share appropriate sections of this. And this is what I would like to share in terms of what I'm trying to say over how there are stages of development in between the proper initiations, and that I am also discussing the initiations in accord with the Emerald Tablet rule. So now I'm quoting Norman Stevens. And please keep in mind he's talking about the Rainbow Bridge techniques. So opportunity. So this is his Phase 3 document. And here we go. Whoop. So opportunity, this is titled Opportunity, what I'm now quoting. And this is Norman. It is my intention to use techniques to speed up the process leading to the third initiation and to conduct this personal review as a course of what has been done by some in the Rainbow Bridge work and others who qualify in my observation. I shall compress the material which would take dedicated clearing processes 2 years to accomplish in relatively few meetings. This is because of the emergency of these times, which have been made very plain to me in my connections with the brothers of hierarchy under the Christ, meaning the Brotherhood of White Light. I believe many will follow in this field of personal observation and contacts, but that concerns the plans of the Christ, meaning Christ light, anchoring Christ light. So Rainbow Bridge Phase 1. Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 was designed to consummate all parts of the proper first initiation, which takes 3 proper, thorough, minor initiations, multi-leveled minor initiations to consummate the first birth initiation. Rainbow Bridge Phase 2 was designed to fully support and consummate all aspects of the proper second initiation, meaning bringing you through and helping you to smoothly move through all of the testing phases, all of the stages of evolution, of the multi-leveled stages of development that are required to fully consummate and complete the second the second baptism initiation in its totality. And I would like to add from my continued catalogued private case studies of the causation of Rainbow Bridge Phase 2, not only does Rainbow Bridge Phase 2 consummate all of the stages of development for the second birth initiation, the proper one, but it also does bring you into a little bit into the third initiation. So it does, Phase 2 does start you into steps towards the third initiation. And then you have Rainbow Bridge 3. So that would be Monadic Thread. That would be Rainbow Bridge Advanced Teachings. Monadic Thread is Phase 3 of Rainbow Bridge. The third initiation, the Transfiguration initiation, meaning the thrust behind Monadic Thread, which is a private level of Rainbow Bridge. I've talked about it in a few videos, but I've only talked about it. I've been teaching Monadic Thread for over 10 years and cataloging case studies on Monadic Thread for longer than that. Rainbow Bridge Phase 3 is Monadic Thread, and that is designed to bring you through all of the stages of development, all of the minor initiations that consummate into the Transfiguration initiation. And I believe with time and continued diligent, patient practice of Monadic Thread, I believe that is exactly what it does, meaning I've got catalogued case studies where I do believe I have basically catalogued all of the main steps of the third initiation or thereabouts, or at least at a point where you could healthily debate that I have catalogued the third initiation in most of its totality. So for anybody, so this is also why I'm pushing back against this, because a lot of people have been misled into believing that the first initiation is just around diet and physical body challenges, that the second initiation is just a little bit about emotional development, and that third initiation is a little bit about mental development. No, that is the minor initiations that are a part of the first birth initiation. Do you see what I mean over how misinformation does mislead and cause a problem? So many people are being glamorized and illusioned away from what the third Transfiguration initiation actually is. And there are actually more stages of development between the second and third initiations, between the proper second initiation and the proper third initiation. There are more stages of development. There's around, good grief, around 5, depending on what point of view you want to have, there's about 5 minor, very deep, very thorough minor initiations between the second and third initiations. And they take time. You would want to be doing Rainbow Bridge monadic thread, or at least Rainbow Bridge phase 2 for quite a number of years. So again, I'm going to go through that again. Rainbow Bridge phase 1 not only clears and widens the central channel properly, which allows the chakras to align properly and the antakarana threads to anchor properly. So in other words, it heals and clears and aligns the lower part of the bridge through you as an anchor point for hierarchy through matter. It not only does all of that for the channel, which is extremely important, but it also fully consummates all of the minor initiations that consummate into the proper, full, true first birth initiation. Rainbow Bridge phase 2 properly consummates and helps you smoothly move through all of the stages of development required to fully consummate the proper, full second baptism initiation. And continued patient practice of Rainbow Bridge phase 2 can also bring you about a stage or 2 into the third initiation as well. But that is where I usually then like to suggest to people to consider then starting phase 3 or monadic thread. And Rainbow Bridge phase 3, monadic thread was designed to consummate all parts, all stages of development for the proper, full, true third initiation. And for those that don't know, one of the reasons why Norman Stevens' focus was on that so much is because for people that do understand about the proper hierarchical initiations, the proper, full third initiation, the transfiguration initiation, is the first cosmic initiation. It's monumental to reach. And it has a lot of amazing manifestations to it when you get near that point. And I will discuss that when I come to that video and that particular document. Remember, I've got to get through the baptism one first before we start exploring or discussing the proper full third. And I just want to see, and for anyone in doubt again, I just want to read Norman's section on this. Number 3, growth difficulties. So I'm now quoting Norman Stevens again. There are 5 steps between the initiations which are stabilized as to the gains at the first and second by the Christ and by the Logos for the third and higher. The steps relate to the main initiations according to the Emerald Tablet rule. They also relate to the Rainbow Bridge books. Because of this, it appears that if the lines between the main initiations were blurred, that is, even with the true second degree initiates, they appear to get problems identified with the higher initiations before they have taken them. And Ascended Master DK has confirmed this. The Rainbow Bridge books have given 2 steps towards the third initiation as outlined above. So now are people understanding why I am Right Relations being so clear about this and doing my best to try to Right Relations dissolve misinformation around what hierarchical initiation is, and dissolving glamour and illusion around what those initiations are. Please keep in mind, I am teaching the late Norman and Josephine Stevens Rainbow Bridge techniques, and their techniques were consciously designed around enforcing proper evolution, the proper initiations discussed by Ascended Master Dwell Kul, the proper initiations according to the Emerald Tablet rule. So I am also simultaneously trying to get decent information out there about what those initiations are, for reasons I've already discussed. So on that note, I think that's all I wanted to share from the late Norman Stevens. And I just want to come back to the birth initiation document. So on that note, for those seeking proper information on what the hierarchical initiations actually are and the overlapping causations and how it all ties in. I hope you thoroughly enjoy being able to download a free copy of this document so you can reflect on and consider all of the main auric markers and causations that relate to the proper first birth initiation and the rainbow bridge techniques being discussed are available for free, and I do give a link. You'll see here through the document I give a link where you can access the rainbow bridge techniques for free, or for an exchange fee, an energy exchange fee. I do also teach. I do also give proper tutoring classes on Rainbow Bridge Phase 1, Rainbow Bridge Phase 2, and Rainbow Bridge Phase 3. But my main thrust with releasing this document is, if you are going to discuss or going to debate the first birth initiation, it would want to be debated from this level. If you were talking about anything below the causations being discussed here, then you're talking about the probationary pathway initiations. So this is what I mean. This is the level the first birth initiation should be more clearly understood from or debated from. Again, let me make this clear. I do not claim to have the whole truth and nothing but the truth, but what I do claim to have is something very, very close to the totality and proper understandings of what the first birth initiation actually is. So again, what I've written here is always open to debate and discussion, but from this level. If you were debating anything under this, you were talking about probationary pathway initiations. This is more of a holistic cataloging and compiling of the totality of what the first birth initiation is. This is the level the first birth initiation should be discussed and considered from this level, debating it from this level. So I hope I've made that clear, and I do highlight in this document that this is my point of view from proper source material that I've been able to gather and from continuing clairvoyant case studies. So again, as always, I ask that even with this document, once you've received it and you're meditating on it and you're reflecting on it, to then do your own research and study on this. In other words, have this as a foundation for how you then consider exploring the initiations or experiencing the initiations or studying the proper initiations. But my main hope is that this has given people a proper springboard to work from, a reliable, solid springboard to start your studies from. And I'll say it again, the information being discussed here is hard to find, it's obscured, it's kept private, and it's not helpful, because I've noticed that all that has done is allowed misinformation to spread in a very rampant way, meaning keeping this proper source information obscured or hard to find has only allowed misinformation and glamour and illusion to run rampant. So I really hope people enjoy this very wise, very knowledgeable, and very honest release. And I've already had people tell me this. I know a lot of people have appreciated just the level of thought and level of effort that's gone into this before releasing it. Meaning coming back to the how many years of cross-referencing and cataloging have gone into this. People just appreciate that alone. Being able to have free, quick access to this information and really being able to sense the amount of honest work and effort that went into this before releasing it into public domain. So I know this will only bless people. I know this will only give people amazing insights. I know this will only help point people in a healthier direction and help foster better understandings and help foster healthy manifestations with evolution. So I'm looking forward to all the many ways this document can bless people that would like to consider it or like to take it on board and reflect on it. So on that note, I believe I've mentioned everything I would like to say. So on that note, wishing everyone an abundance of blessings, wishing everyone an abundance of insights, an abundance of inspiration. 7 ray blessings to all.